Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in this morning. We're about to start our webinar, Suprema CoreStation and Suprema Intelligence Late. We're going to be starting our webinar in a couple of minutes. A quick reminder is that this webinar is being recorded and it will be sent to your email right after the webinar. Also, we upload all of these sessions to our YouTube channel, AppCom USA, where you're able to view all of these recordings. And if you are missing some details, you can always go back and review it at our channel. Also, a quick reminder is that AppCom holds inventory at our Miami warehouse and at El Paso and San Antonio. If you have a project and you need stock from Suprema, please contact your sales representative. They'll be ready to take your order. All right, I think now we're about to start our webinar. So welcome to everyone who just joined in. We're about to start our Suprema CoreStation and Suprema Intelligence Lab. Our panelist for today is Loveri Loest. He will be our panelist for today's webinar. Loveri, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you doing?
We're doing great. Thank you for joining in this morning, and we're ready now to start our webinar.
Okay. Thank you for the space, and thank you to everyone that is joining as well. We will start right away. All right, so we have the opportunity today to speak about Suprema CoreStation CS40 and to talk about all the differentiations that we do that makes us a winner in the control access market, okay, security. So let us start with this video. I will try to describe everything that is going on in the audio because we don't have audio for the videos at this time, but yeah. What we see, just in case that is the first time that you attend to a Suprema webinar, it is a high quality access control panel that allows you to have a control through your fingerprint, through your face, and also through a mobile phone with a virtual card, and also through a normal plastic card. Doesn't matter if it's a 125 kilohertz technology or a 1356 megahertz technology. Okay, so we have the access to all of them. So what we are going to cover today are these contents, as you can see on the screen. The first one is why CoreStation, why not other type of access control panel, even why Suprema, not any other brand. And the second, how to sell CoreStation, what are the winning points of CoreStation. In the third, we will see what is the intelligence slave for Suprema Intelligence Slave. And after that, we'll have the time for questions and answers. Okay, so let's start. Why CoreStation? And in the upcoming slides, we're going to see the reasons why you should choose CoreStation along with Suprema. Okay, so CoreStation, what does Core stand for? The first one, C, stands for complete solution. And it is because indeed CoreStation, it is a complete solution for everything that you may be needing, because it is actually ready for any kind of devices and any kind of credentials, and also any kind of businesses as well. Since the very small business for PMA and to the enterprise business, we can target all of them with one. And that is the second one for all, because as I just said, it is ready for a small business up to the enterprise businesses, okay? We are able to provide the security performance. It doesn't really matter which kind of business you are managing, right? And this without sacrificing the role for high security. And this is the situation about many of the other manufacturers, if they are working with some kind of panel, that panel can be suitable just, for example, for a small office. But if they try to work with the same panel for an enterprise or even a medium business, then you start to see a lot of lackings in performance capabilities, and moreover in the role of security, which at the end of the day is the most important in this case, because it is actually access control for security. So if you are not able to comply with the security standards, then what's the point, right? So that specifically is the third point here in the CoreStation, and when with the CoreStation, sorry, we are able to comply with the rules for high security. Again, it doesn't really matter which kind of businesses you will be installing the CoreStation in or for, and at the same time having a complete solution. And just to make the things better, the installation is easy. All right, so what you have here is the core solution for whatever an environment you are working with or you want to work for. Okay, you will have a complete solution, you will have one for all, you will have the role for high security, and you will have an easy installation for onboard matching in specific. So what's the CoreStation? Well, CoreStation is the access control panel from Suprema, and this is a winner against very much everything you can compare it with. Okay, so in the same board, we have the controller, we have the main brain, if we can say in other words, and at the same time we have these ports that includes a lot of interfaces. Sorry, among those interfaces we can mention the RS485 with OSDP version 2, and we have also the power supply. We have the WIGN interface. We have TTL outputs that, of course, that you can use to power something, or that you can use for signaling as well. And you have a supervised input, actually 2 inputs of supervised type. And also you have a relay per each of these ports. The board itself integrates the access control module and also the general control module in one single board. So you have a lot here. And just to make a comparison between this and other manufacturers, if you have experience with other manufacturers' panels, you will find that if you are choosing a WIGN interface for that specific port, you cannot use the OSDP interface for the same port, right? In Suprema, all of these are parallel, they are not serial, so you can make a use of the RS485 OSDP, and at the same time you can be also using the WIGN interface. So this is also a winner point regarding to other manufacturers, and of course that you can be using the outputs, the supervised inputs, very much you can use everything at the same time here, and there will be no limitations about that, right? Besides that, you have 4 of these interfaces, and you have 5 different OSDP channels in the same panel. So you have very much a lot in one thing. Besides that, in the software, you have the access to store the data for 500,000 users, and you can store in the same memory of the panel 5 million event logs. All right, so again, if you compare this with other manufacturers, you will see the high difference, the comparison between the CoreStation and other panels, access control panels. Next to this one, it is a complete solution, as I just mentioned, and is very much ready for every kind of credential that we can have here. We have the ability to control RFID devices. We have also the capability to connect and manage the fingerprint devices, and also facial recognition devices, as long also to smart card devices. So you have, like I said in the first slide, we have one for all and all in one at the same time. Okay, so in this video, what we can see is a summary of what is the solution that we have available for you here. This is not just any kind of combination. You will see here a short demonstration of how the different kind of credentials can work together. It doesn't really matter if you're working with a plastic access control traditional card. You can be working with that. Also, you can work with a fingerprint or your face as well as a credential, and also use the smart card or virtual smart card. You will be able to work with any of this. So like I just said, I would like to repeat it once again. You have every kind of credential in one device, and you have a complete solution for everything that you've been needing to work with, okay? So once again, one for all, you can be ready for the small business in the case that you may want to install this in a small office. You will not have the need to add any other device besides the readers and the CoreStation. That is that you do not need a access control module for controlling the door, or for example to expanding more ports. If you want to connect something else, everything, as I just said, it is included in the same board for the CoreStation CS40, right? So in the comparison with this, if you compare to another manufacturer, probably you will need to have the access control module, which will be very much the brain, and after that you will need to have some general control modules regarding to some specific brand, and after that probably the door controller, and after that the reader, or probably something else. So here you make the comparison, and at the end of the day you have a lower cost per door. So you can lower the costs for the overall project without having to sacrifice the performance for the system. And that's specifically the objective we have in Suprema for you. Okay, and if you make the comparison between a small business and you want to install the CoreStation into an enterprise business, then you can do that as well with the same brain in the same board, just using some of the peripherals. That it is worth mentioning that none of these peripherals devices are smart devices, in the sense that they do not do any kind of processing. The only thing they do is just extending the capabilities for inputs for the control, the access control module. So in this case, you can add up to 64 different DM20s, for example, as you can see in this slide. And with 64 DM20 devices, you can connect 2 Wigan interfaces per each of them. That makes 128 doors. And if you sum also the 4 that are previously included that are in the same board as the CS40, then you got 132 doors controlled by one single unit of CoreStation. And last time I was speaking to some integrator that it is used to work with another brand, and one of the actually more renowned brands in the market that is actually our competitor in quality. And they will say something like, "Oh, so I'm impressed because in this other brand, the maximum quantity of doors are 64 doors per each controller," he said. And I said, well, then you see the difference between Suprema and other manufacturers, the capabilities of our devices and the strong capabilities and performance that we can offer for you. So this is one of the best comparisons that we can mention. And if you are worried about the high security, then you can be at peace with us, because it actually doesn't matter if you are working with fingerprint devices or if you are working with facial devices. All the data is being stored in the memory for the CoreStation. None of this data will be stored in the same device. And what is the usability of this? The first thing is that the channel, the RS485 channel, it's been protected. It's been encrypted. That's the first thing that I can mention. And the second thing is a specific use case that we had in the region, some specific customer which had some vandalic experience in their facilities. So they have this problem that with other manufacturers, they have been replacing the reader a lot, because once these people will come to open the doors without, of course, any permission, they will come and just smash the device, and once they would smash the device, then the door will unlock and they will have access to the facility. So they have a lot of problems and issues with this. So they came to us looking for a solution, and we gave them the Suprema CoreStation. What happened after that? They made proof of concept, and actually they said, I am happy with what I see in the screen, but I want to test whether this is real or not. So they say, I'm going to buy one unit for each of this, and I'm going to install it in my facilities, and I'm going to put it to test. And actually they did, they installed a Entry R2, that actually the Entry R2 doesn't have any vandalic certification, just do the XPass D2, but they wanted to try, and they did so. So they installed the Entry R2, and they came with a very big smash, and they smashed the reader after a couple of hits. And the thing that he was so surprised of is that after even the reader was destroyed, the door was still secured. So they say, okay, I'm going to install this in my facilities, and they did so. So along with this customer, I could mention many more cases where the security, the role for high security of CoreStation has been making the difference between a real secure facility to another that can be compromised. Okay, so like I said, all the data here is protected with IES 256 encryption. And not only the channel between the CoreStation and the readers, but also the communication channel between the server and the CoreStation is also protected. The channel is encrypted with TLS 1.2 with HTTPS. So we can have tranquility, you can have peace that everything will be secure if you are working with us. So if we make a comparison between what we can do in the different topologies, you will find something like you see in the screen at this time, One with that topology with CoreStation controlling the devices via OSDP, and also being managed or configured via Biostar2 software. But also you could see some topology like you can see in your screen in the left side, that the Suprema devices could be controlled through a third-party control panel and also a third-party software. So the difference here it is that when you are working with CoreStation, you need no TCP cable to manage the devices for enrollment and configuration. But if you're working with a third panel control, access control panel, then you will be needing that. And also the difference is that the data, the biometric data, is everything it's stored not in the software, but in the panel. And what are the advantages of that? What are the advantages of just storing the information within the memory of the device? The first thing I will say that is very much obvious. It is much more easy to have access to the data in the software, in the server, that to have the access in the access control panel by itself. Because if you will want, to have access to the memory of the CoreStation, the first thing is that you have to be a very trained electronic engineer, at least, to be able to access the circuitry, the circuitry. And after that, if you are able to read directly from the circuitry in the hardware, then you will have to find the key for decrypting that information. That is not easy, it's very much impossible, I would say. But in the case that you will have the biometric data inside a third-party software, it's not that difficult. So I would say that that's the best comparison that we can do. And also, speaking about the performance, when you have a algorithm developed and embedded in hardware, the hardware will work much faster, always, all the time, that an algorithm implemented in software. So that's actually another comparison that we can make between this. And well, how can we sell CoreStation? What are the winning points? And you can see them right away here in your screen. The first one is the installation flexibility. The second one, as we have just mentioned, enhanced security, and also the expandability. So let us mention some success cases speaking about this in a specific. The first one is Bosch Global, and these customers specifically is in Turkey. They installed, as you can see in the screen, 250 CoreStation units along with 600 readers from this other brand, from Legic. All right, so what did do here, it is very much connecting these readers to the CoreStation units to manage the access for the gate systems and some other places, physical places. But important here, the important thing here it is that they manage everything, the 250 CoreStation units, through a third-party software utilizing the Biostar2 device SDK. Okay, so that's another point of winning. Our SDKs and APIs, they all are free, right? So you can access to them without having to pay any fee. And that's other winning point regarding or comparing Suprema to other manufacturers. As you may know, when you want to develop with other manufacturers, you have to pay a very expensive fee. And just to mention something, one of the things that we have had access to in just recent days, a person needed to pay around $7,000 for accessing a device SDK from other manufacturers, And the important thing here is that that customer came to us and say, you know, if I will know that you guys, Suprema, had the SDK available for free, I will come to you in the first place, because they say your support, Suprema technical support, is the best that I have experienced. And that's another winning point. Our support is not charged, you know, so you can actually open your profile in our support website for free, and you will receive support for free as well. So they said, you know, I had to pay $7,000 for that SDK, and besides that, I had to pay such an amount of money. The support, the technical support, was just rubbish, you know. So they say, if I will know about what you have in the first place, I will come to you, not to the other manufacturer. So, you know, just like this experience, I could share a lot more about that. So those points are very important if you are about to take a decision about with which kind of brand do you want to work with. You have to take in account all of I have said, not just the price of the equipment, not just the quality of the equipment, not just the performance of the equipment, that we have everything, of course, but you should also take in account what is the cost of receiving technical support, what kind of warranty does the manufacturer offers to you. Do you actually have the trust that you will be receiving attention as you deserve it? And that's the question that you have to answer. And you know, if you allow me, I will tell you, if you work with Suprema, of course, that you will receive this and much more. Okay, so let's continue with these cases. The second one that I can mention is Biru in Peru, which actually has these units of CoreStation. Here, we work towards an implementation of a integration between SAP and also our devices through BioStar 2 software. The interesting thing here is that the personnel there, the operative level of personnel, they did not access with a card or probably a fingerprint at the beginning. They do now with facial recognition, but at this specific moment when we implemented this project, they will access only through the national ID card. And the thing here is we were requested to make an integration and reading the first thing to that ID card, personal ID card. And why? Because that ID card was the same number registered under the ERP that was fed to the SAP software. So they said, you know, if you are going to do something with the access control, I don't want to spend money buying some plastic cards. I don't want to spend money and time enrolling people. I just want them to enter with what they have already, and that's the personal ID card. So they say, okay, so we will do it, and we did it. Okay, so this is the result. They also had the physical sign for access. And why the physical sign for access? This semaphore, that traffic light that you see here, which allowed them to see like very loud and clear, if we could say in that specific phrase, that they have the access to that when they receive the access granted notice. Okay. So let us continue. City Development Limited in Singapore, they also have this kind of integration. And the interesting point here, it is that they have the integration to the elevator systems, the lifts. So that is just a few things that you can do with CoreStation. You can connect the OM120 as an output module device for controlling elevators, or you also can connect the IM120, which is the input module device. Also, if you are interested in making some interfaces between the CoreStation and some, I don't know, fire panels or intrusion alarm systems. You can do the interfacing between the access control with CoreStation and those models. Okay, so let's continue here with Krongtai Car Public Company Limited, which is another customer that work with this. And the thing that is very interesting in this case, it is that this customer, they wanted to implement a high availability model. And what I mean by this is that you may introduce redundancy in the system. How to make a redundant topology here? The first thing is that we install the bioentry P2 as the first point of the entry point coming from the CoreStation, and in each of the edges was, like I said, a bioentry P2, and after that the bioentry R2 as a slave device from all of the previous ones. And the configuration here was managed by BioStar2. The thing that is very interesting here, like I just said, is that if for some reason you will cut the communication between the access control panel and the fast devices in the chain, in the daisy chain configuration, that will not mean that the system will stop working. And why? Because there was the information being synchronized automatically from BioStar to the bioentry P2 devices. The use case for all of this is that at the point that the communication is lost between the controller and the device, this device itself becomes a controller for the slave device. So you can get a standalone system as well if you don't have the access control panel. So that is the high availability configuration that we can get with the CoreStation and the other Suprema devices. So if you ask me, can I do that for my side? The answer will be, of course you can, okay? And besides that, this system was used as a time and attendance system, not only as a access control system. So you have the functionalities here available for you. So in the short, what you can do with CoreStation, it is you can manage just a single office with, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, up to 5 doors without having any complication. And with the same CoreStation card, and I mean literally one same CoreStation controller, you can manage a whole building access control system. What kind of interfaces you can do? Well, you can connect RFID readers, you can connect fingerprint readers, you can connect facial recognition readers, and also you can use the smart card, the virtual card. So you very much have everything at one hand. Okay, so as I was mentioning, and probably you can remember, the acronym for Core complete solution, one for all, that is ready for security and also that offers everything that you are looking for. Okay, so just jumping into the next sub-item, sub-theme for this presentation, for this webinar, it will be the Suprema Intelligence Slave. Okay, so if you ask me what is the Suprema Intelligence Slave, what do we do here? You will see this in the screen in the slide that I'm presenting at this time, very much in this topology. It is connecting the Suprema readers to a third-party access control unit, as you can see here. You know, what are the uses of this? You know, previously you will need to have probably just a weekend connectivity interface between the access control unit and the Suprema device. But now we can do that through OSDP. What were the limitations before? Well, you know, it is probably not very good to mention this for other manufacturers because they cannot actually handle biometrics directly on their hardware as Suprema can do. So that was the primary limitation that there were here in the system, in the connections, in the connectivities. Because, you know, although the Suprema device it is not handling the access control rules for the access control system, still we do the biometric authentication inside the same device. So here, the function that enables many users, as you can see in the screen, matching by transmitting the authentication results to the OSDP of the third-party access control unit, you know, and the authentication for the biometrics is performed in the Suprema device. All right, so that is what we have here. And as you can see in the screen, the Suprema Biostar 2 supports the below OSDP versions for all of these devices for the usage. What is going to be still handled in the access control unit? Very much everything, you know, user information, card information, and actually the access control rules as well. But the biometric information will be handled by the Suprema device. Here is what we do. As I previously mentioned, we handle the access on card or the template on card inside of the device, and then we share the result to the third-party access control unit. The difference here is that you can handle a lot of managing of the device directly through OSDP. You know, and the sync of the data for users' data is being handled still through TCP. And why? Once again, sadly, the third-party manufacturers, they cannot handle, most of them, I will say, actually, they cannot handle biometrics directly on hardware. Okay, so that is the primary limitation that we have with third-party manufacturers. So, since when this feature is available? This feature is available since the version 2.8.10 for Biostar 2. Right now, or at this time, we are in Biostar 2 version 2.9.3. So can we work with that right now? The answer is yes, we can do that. Okay. The first is that previously a customization was required to handle this, but now, as you can see in the screen, you can just unbox any of these devices, just check the firmware, probably will be a higher version than this one, and it will be ready for configuration. And this is what I am about to talk about, how to configure this feature. And the answer, it is you open, you click up. If you have worked with Biostar software before, then you just need to go to devices, click on the device that you will want to configure, and go scrolling down to the intelligent slave field. And the first thing that you are going to configure here, it is the RS485 working mode. In here, we have three different modes. The first one is default, the second one is master, and the third one is a slave. So once you finished working with the configuration, the mode for the serial, then you go to specify the speed, the baud rate speed that you will be working with. How to know here which kind of parameter are you going to configure? The answer is you have to check with the third-party manufacturer what is the speed that they handle through RS485, right? So once you get that data, then you can come back here and configure the baud rate speed. One note that you have to take in mind, and you have to have in mind, it is that once the Suprema device is connected as a slave device to a third-party access control unit through OSDP, the Suprema device becomes a peripheral device of OSDP. And I think that this is very understandable, and just to bear that in mind, okay? So the next step it is to configure the exception code. And why? Because, you know, if you do not do that, the connection will still work. But at the moment that you may receive any error, authentication exception, or any other thing, then you can actually forward that code to the access control unit. How do you do that? Well, you can configure even a decimal or hexadecimal code. From what number to which number can you handle? Where from 0 to this 18, 44, 67, 44, 16, 15, which is actually the maximum number that you can configure with 8 bytes. Or if the equivalent is in hexadecimal from 0 to F, 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 you know, until you finish all the Fs, right? So those are the probable exception codes that you can configure here to make the interrelation. All right, so the next step will be how kind of output info are you going to handle? These are two possibilities, and the meaning of this is, for example, let's say that I enroll myself, so I will have the profile for very lowest with user ID number 7, for example, but I have a card which card number will be 12345678990, right? So what kind of information is the Suprema device going to transfer upon a successful authentication through the access control unit from the other manufacturer? So this is actually the way or the place where you configure this. So if I present my face to a facial device, what kind of data is going the Suprema device to transmit? Is going to transmit the ID number 7, which is my user ID, or is it going to transmit the card number 12345678990? Right? So which kind of data am I going to transfer? This is the place where you configure that according to your preference or your needs, okay? And this is also very important because when you are working with CoreStation, you don't need to specify any of this. And why? Because the implementation that we have, that Suprema has for the OSDP, is a very smart configuration such that you do not need to configure some specific OSDP ID, but the Suprema device broadcast a smart one based on their specific and unique device ID. But in this case, you have to specify one. Then once you do that, between 0 and 126, then you can have the direct communication with the access control unit from other manufacturers. So the step 4 will be to create a new user in BioStar2 and synchronize the user data to the connected Suprema device, right? In addition to this, in which device? Well, the device that we have just configured, you know? In addition, check if there is a user success verification, you know? So once you get everything in place, all the user data and also the configuration, then you can go ahead and connect the Suprema device to the third-party ACU through OSDP and then check the operation. And that will be finishing the configuration for this feature. And of course, you will have the access to test and to see that everything goes as is expected. So one more thing that I can mention before finishing this webinar, it is that as you can see here with this intelligent slave feature, you are able to configure a Suprema device to a third-party access control unit, but at the same time, you can also receive readers from other manufacturers into CoreStation as well, not just through Wigan, but also through OSDP as well. So you have here the flexibility of choosing and saying, okay, so I'm going to install Suprema in this new site, but happens that the customer has some existing devices. And the question, can I reuse these other devices from other manufacturers and implement them, or to integrate them to the Suprema system, the Suprema topology? And the answer is yes, you can do that. And why? Because Suprema, one of its strongest points is the openness for the integration to other manufacturers. And that is the same reason why Suprema is an integration partner for many other third-party manufacturers, as I can mention, for example, Tyco Software House. I can mention also Lenel, S2, and some other of the more renowned manufacturers. We can receive readers from HID and some other as well. So this is one of the strongest points that I can mention in comparison to other manufacturers. And as I just said, all these are the openness in our platform. So let me finish with this video that summarizes everything that we have just spoken of in this presentation. We can do the facial recognition, we can do fingerprint recognition as well. We can also have, as I just said, a biometric controller that is able to handle the authentication in itself, with a speed of matching of 400,000 matches per second. Also the processor capabilities, also the massive capacity of storage of 500,000 users and 5 million even logs, the capability for scalability, as I just mentioned as well, the easiness for expansion of adding not just one device, but you can control up to 132 doors with only one controller, and the integration capabilities of all of this. And also, yeah, we have all these capabilities for the system, and you will have the ability to do a lot more with less. Okay. All right. So yes, we can configure also vegan devices. Yes, also we can connect to third-party readers, as I also mentioned, the flexibility that we have as well. We support all types of credentials, PIN cards, also intelligent cards, access on cards, facial recognition. Everything of this is available, all kinds of credentials. You can also configure a lot of outputs there without sacrificing the security. We handle OSDP with encryption. AES, as I said, right, 256 with TLS 1.2, and without having to have also a Ethernet connection to the devices, because everything is handled via OSDP. All right. So if we have any questions, I will say that this is the time for that.
Thank you so much, Louvery. Thank you so much for sharing all this valuable information about Suprema. And at the moment, we might do have some questions, but the time for this session is about to end. So we ask everyone, if you have a question, this is a moment to send it, but we're not going to be able to answer all of them at the moment of this session. So please, if you have any question, just send us a message through the question panel, and we'll be answering all of these questions by email. We thank everyone for being here this morning, and we thank Louvery for sharing all this information about Suprema. We hope to see everyone in our future sessions. And also a quick reminder that this webinar was recorded and we're going to be sending the presentation to your email. Thank you so much for your time. And Laveri, I don't know if you want to add anything else before we close the session.
Probably just say that I'm very grateful with all of you guys for your attendance to this webinar. And just as you have said, if you have any questions, then you can please send that questions to the contacts that we have. Also, please follow us in our social media. We would like to have contact with you. And thank you once again, and God bless you.
Thank you, Laveri. Everyone, thank you so much for your time this morning, and we hope to see you in our future sessions. Have a great day, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.